um, this kind of came out of, you're lucky enough to have my mentor and your past national president, Ann DeFries, join me. She's also happens to be the vice chair for NAR Leadership Identification Development. I have benefited from her wisdom and insight all these years, and I can tell you it's certainly made a difference in my journey. And as she has always shown me, the best way to pay her back is to pay it forward. And so today we've kind of put together the things that we've learned. We were just talking over 55 years of volunteering and navigating the leadership journey. And our hope for you is that we can help you be more successful, more productive, and more informed as you go through the process. And so welcome, Anne, and we're so excited to have you. And I'm
Thanks,
happy to be with
Cyndee.
you.
And Cyndee is our Florida Realtor secretary for 2025. And she is also the LID chair for the state of Florida. So she has been very involved in the state network of Florida with Women's Council. And so she's the perfect person to be on here with me to discuss both Women's Council and NAR opportunities. We have over 70 people signed up for today. I'm sure they will continue to roll in as we always do. People get tied up with things. So we are going to go ahead and start. I want you to know that at the end, we do, and we have saved time for some questions and answers. If you have any questions of us, we'd be happy to answer them for you. So let's roll it.
Awesome. Now let me see if I can make it work. Okay.
The future of real estate changes the moment that you say yes. And it's really about making a decision to get into leadership. And leadership does not mean that you are going to be president of NAR or the president of the National Women's Council of Realtors. What it really means is that you are looking at being in leadership, and that's being on a committee or being in the Leadership Identification Development Program of the Women's Council. We want you to be able to apply for LID, as we're going to call it, throughout the day. And we're going to show you how to do that and things to think about before you get into committee chairmanship or ask to get into the LID program. And we're going to talk about what opportunities in both programs are out there for you. And we want you to become a catalyst, because we know that unless we are all mentors to other people, that no leadership really changes. And one of the things that we always need to do is take care of ourselves as women and leaders, period. This kind of stems from the fact that Cyndee and I were talking one day and realized that no one was really there to help us navigate this. The things that we're going to talk about today, we have learned over the course of many years, and I don't think that that's always the way that it should have to be. Why not learn it in one place and not bits and pieces here and there? People sometimes are not willing to share, and I'm not sure why, because we share everything at Women's Council. So let's start making a difference and share what we know and what we have learned with you, and then you can pass that on to other people.
Yeah, so, here is, I don't know how many of you are aware, sometimes there's some confusion, at least that's what I've experienced as the state LID chair and going through the process. But that leadership and identification process, the application is now open. It is on the Women's Council National website. One more reason to go out and visit our amazing new website, get familiar. And while you're there, be sure and update your profile with all the things like your face and picture. But you have until now, until June 13th, to go out and fill out that application. Once the June 13th date comes, just to give you a little idea what happens behind the scenes, is all of that information goes to national. Then they break it up by state, and the state gets a list of all the people that filled out that application, and it goes back to your state LID chair to discuss with their committee. And then, in my experience, the state is able to put forward up to 10 leadership and identification candidates. And there's a lot of kind of confusion around that because when I started, when I was on the committee last year, people were wondering, hey, who goes forward by the state? But really, just as we talk about it today, it's also a process to help us identify future leaders. So realize that if you've been through the Women's Council, like Leadership Academy, for instance, your application and what you want to do is valued, and the leadership team is looking for ways to incorporate that. But they already know you. The idea is, states have lots of people and lots of networks, and they want to give an opportunity for the state to say, hey, here's some up and coming people, and we'd love them to experience more of Women's Council nationally. And so just understand that that selection process comes. You may have seen the list, your state may publish who are the 10 candidates. And then as you get into early fall, you actually get appointments. I know a couple years ago, I was asked to be a social media ambassador. So when that came out, they told those of us that had been chosen, we got some education, and that was our role for this year. I will tell you one more thing you may not know is that in Women's Council, the leadership pathways, which again, look under that section of the website, but there's constantly things coming up throughout the year. So just because it's not right this minute, there may be opportunities throughout the year. So keep your eyes open as maybe task force or projects come up. And then we're going to go through the application so you'll see more about this. But again, there are opportunities in many, many different areas, from, helping at the booth at the national conferences, to working in budget and finance, to being on technology, to being a presenter at Network 360. So all those things are there, and you will prioritize what are your top ones, and I'll show you the application. But one of the things I love, and I don't remember it in the past, but they've really done a great job, is on the application near each opportunity, it'll have numbers 1, 2, or 3, or a combination. So understand what it's telling you is the micro volunteering might be, hey, think of it like at our state levels, a project team. There's something they need help with, and you're like on that project team. Number 2 is a major year-long commitment. So maybe you're on finance and budget, and they might meet regularly over the course of a year. And then number 3 is letting you know that whatever those opportunities are, they're expecting you to be at our national meetings, which are in May and November. So again, if you apply and are accepted for that, then you understand that attending the national meetings is part of that commitment. So know that when you make that commitment. So kind of going through, and Ann and I talked about this because, she's always given me this wisdom. We just wanted to share. The first part of the application is just your basic information, but my slide here is a little funky, but at the bottom, you're going to say, why should the committee choose you? And even on the website, when they talk about LID, they're saying, don't just put all your titles, because first of all, titles can mean different things at different places. Really, it's about what skills do you have? What expertise do you have? But also, Women's Council also entertains what skills are you looking to grow? So don't be afraid if there's something that you're looking to learn more about or help with. That also could be a place to put that. Does that make sense?
When I have reviewed these, what I've also noticed is that everyone puts down that in 1999, whenever, 2021, that they were membership chair. And then they'll rank everything that they've done on the local network level and on the state network level. Well, some of that is important, but remember that almost everyone is going to be putting that same information down. So I would be putting down your current, I am the state network LID chair, or whatever it is that you're doing, state, local president of your network. You can rest assured that we are going to assume that if you have reached that goal of whatever it is that you're doing, that you have done other things behind you. So the important things that I think we're looking at is, what have you done on the outside world? Okay. Have you sat on your planning and zoning committee? Were you a stockbroker at one time? Were you a mortgage broker? Were you involved in something financial? Take your field of business. Most of us had one or two careers before we even became involved in real estate. The reason that I want you to highlight those things are those are really the unique attributes that you have that you're bringing to the table. I don't want you to show what everybody else is going to have on there. You're different, you are unique, and I want you to be able to put that on your resume when you put in your LID application.
Thank you. Great point. So I'm just going to go, the next couple of slides are actually going to show you what the application looks like. So I'm not really going to read it, but notice it goes in alphabetical order. And after each one, you can see those numbers that we referenced, right? And so if you have an interest in some of these, my suggestion would be that you talk to someone within your state network or someone that you know that's involved in national and maybe find out. For instance, if you were new to the network, executive committee is probably not the best thing to ask for as your first choice, right? So again, this is an opportunity to learn. I love always finding out opportunities because again, it's the time of year where you find out more about things that you can plug into that, all of a sudden people are like, how did you get to do that? How did you get to do that? So this is your time to be curious, to ask questions. And even if you're not doing it this year, maybe there's some things or opportunities to help you be prepared for next year. So this was the first page. Here's more of the opportunities they're looking for people to help with. And there's some more. So speakers at national meetings, technology investment, social media influencers, greeters and MCs. Again, wide range of skills, but also things that you don't have to have anything except a willingness to serve. And then you're going to get to the last page and they're going to ask you to rank from 1 to 5 what things are most important to you. And again, you don't have to pick 5, but it does allow you to pick up to 5. And then you're going to submit that jot form. And that's when we said it goes to national. So again, giving you that idea of how that process is going to work. Go ahead, Am.
And a note on that too, if you're involved in Toastmasters, say, I would feel really comfortable as a national officer to ask you to do the inspiration or the pledge or to give a presentation. So you have a lot of skill sets that you don't think about on a daily basis that you have acquired over the course of years that you should be putting down on that application. Please, this is the one time that you need to self-nominate. Don't sit back and wait for someone else to ask you to do this because it's not going to happen for you. So when you do put in your leadership identification application, it is only a self-nomination. So make the commitment today to say, I'm going to find one of these wonderful opportunities and I'm going to list them and rank them according to where I'm going to be and what my interests are. And I'm going to self-nominate myself for these things. The states are able to do 10 selections. They will go to the state of LID committee. They will go through all of these recommendations that self-nominations that have been sent in, and they will pick 10 out of these. 10 is a lot. It may not be a lot in Florida because we have 1,000 members plus, but in another state, it might be a lot. So just remember that you have a really good chance of being selected for something. But your number one primary goal is to spotlight, and our goal is to spotlight emerging talent. And it's funny because we're always looking for new leaders on the local network. And any member can apply for this, and you should be getting out into your local networks and asking them to apply for LID. It's one way that you're going to find some of your emerging leadership talent that's out there that you didn't even realize was there. And you are building your volunteer pool when you do that. So think about different ways that this can be used.
Yeah, I love that. And, I know at our state, again, two things. One is I would encourage those of you that are network presidents or state leaders, this is a time that you also, though, can be what we do, which is be that encourager to give someone the confidence to say, hey, have you looked at this and see if there's anything that, speaks to you. I also think that you're helping people. One of the draws is it gets people to the conferences, right? I mean, people wonder, well, am I, maybe because we know a lot of times our presidents might go, but people might understand like, well, there's no role for me, or why would I go? And there are ways to get them. And we all, my experience, as people start to see the bigger picture, they have a bigger dream for themselves. And so that's part of our each of our responsibility to encourage other people to do that. And then those lists, like we said, even though the 10 are more focused on the newer, those lists are used at state, national, and local levels to say, hey, so-and-so is interested in doing social media. Maybe we could ask them to help with our state events, or maybe we can help them with other stuff. So again, big part of it. Thank you so much. And then do you want to go through the timeline for NAR?
Sure. You're about to miss the deadline, so make a great big star on your calendar to do this today or tomorrow. The deadline for NAR committee application is May 15th. It's been open since March, but it's okay. They don't come in ranking them, and when you put your application in, just make sure that you do it by May 15th. And I would suggest that you set a deadline for yourself at May 10th or even May 5th. There's no reason you can't get on that immediately or this weekend, maybe when you have a couple minutes. First thing I want you to do is to update your expertise profile, which is on NAR. And if you don't know about that, when you sign in to nar.realtor, top right, you can sign in as a member, and it will lead you to your expertise profile, which should be updated every year, because every year we do something different and we add things to our resume. Once again, this is our own personal NAR development application that's sitting at NAR. And anyone at any time of the year can go in there. Staff, your leadership team, your RVPs, your state presidents, anyone can go, any member can go in there and see what your expertise profile is. So it's really important to put those things down. You can apply for up to 5 committees, and I would make some suggestions, which we'll be getting into, as to what committees to take a look at, and request up to 3 endorsements per committee. Now your endorsements cannot come from the NAR leadership team, RVPs, the NAR liaisons. So don't even ask them, because they can't do it. Your endorsements for a committee should come from your state leadership, mentors that you have, that you've worked with, people that know your work ethic and things that you have done on the local or state level that could contribute to the national level. So choose your endorsements wisely. Leaders and mentors, they submit the endorsements during the same time window. So don't ask your people to endorse you on May 14th, because invariably every year I get probably 10 to 20 requests on May 14th to endorse someone, and it's really difficult to get them all done. So that's why I'm asking you to stop what you're doing in the next few days, take a look at the committees, which we'll get into, and ask for your endorsements early. So the people that you're asking have time to think about it and time to respond.
Awesome. So, yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Identify your interests. Again, match your passions to what you really want to do. But also know, some of the policies that go around that. Do your research, and you can go on and look under 2025 committees, which have already been chosen for this year. You're applying for a 2026 committee when you put in your application. The leadership team gets together in July and August. They make decisions as to who's on the committees, and by September, you are notified. They try to make it so that every NAR director is given a committee appointment. You don't have to be an NAR director to receive a committee appointment. So know that going into it. But do your research. go on, and it's ranked by committee by state and committee by name. Go into committee by name. If you, first of all, it lists all 80 plus committees and it has their goals on there. So maybe you weren't even familiar with all of the committees. I certainly never was. See something that might be attractive to you. See what the terms are. Some of these committees have 2-3 year terms. If membership and jurisdiction doesn't appeal to you, you don't want to be on there for 3 years. So you may want to choose something else as your first, 1, 2, 3 choice. So, seek strategic recommendations. But again, if you don't have a background in strategic planning, either teaching it or being involved as a chairman somewhere on it, don't go in and ask for an NAR appointment to be put on strategic thinking or go on to be put on finance or executive committee. Not unless you have the credentials to back that, because you will not get on and people kind of sit back and say, I don't understand why they would have chosen this committee. But I do want you to know that if you have a background in something, say financial, you could be put on investment and reserve on NAR. It happens all the time because they are not familiar with who has the background, either as a board of director at a bank or finance or mortgage, or comes in many different forms, as we all know with finance. So make sure that you highlight what it is that you bring to the table that you can get on a certain committee. Review meeting minutes. They're all online. You're able to take a look at them if you have any questions about what maybe is entailed or what they discuss. Know the appointment policy. One member per one appointment. It's very, very rare to get more than that. So you can expect not to be on more than one committee. Perfect your expertise profile, which we've already talked about. Make sure that you have a photo on there. Many, many times when they're in committee selection, the LT and their team will look someone up to say, I know you know who they are. Here's their photo. And everybody in the room goes, yeah, okay, I know who they are now. Being aware of endorsement limits. Again, you can only ask for 3 endorsements per committee. And stay persistent. Continue to ask for those appointments. Cyndee?
Yeah. So a couple of things before we go off that I remember when I was first starting, and we've probably all done it. It's like, okay, well, what is the right committee to be on? Or what should I apply for? Thinking, what are the cool kids on? Whatever. And the best advice that I got over and over and over from people ahead of me was, what interests you? And it really is kind of, for me, it was insurance, as many people know, because I had a big background, and it also, I brought a lot of knowledge and skill with that. But I think that it is really important. And also, as you look at the committees, they will tell you what experience level. So if somebody says you need to have 5 years on NAR committees, they're trying to let you know that you could be an exception, like Ann said, because you were, a financial planner and have this incredible financial background. But for the most part, they're saying you get that with time, and they're just trying to help you get in the right places. So I just agree with that. And as Ann said, really one committee is a huge win. So, it's not one of these things. There are so many people, and even though there's 80 committees, they're limited, and oftentimes the states only have a certain allocation. So even though there's positions, it might be that your state gets one person, and so you're also competing within your state, and sometimes they're looking to get that experience moving up. So again, don't let it stress you that there are more applicants than positions. But also, what I'll tell you, and this, is you can attend the meetings even without being on the committee. You can start to learn, you can start to meet the people on the committee. I always feel like doing that makes me a better realtor. And so I've always done that. Even since I can only be on one committee, there are other committees that interest me. I will attend. And so people notice if you're really interested. So, So just realize that all that is part of the process. I mean, ultimately, it's not about a title. It's about what could you contribute, what could you learn. And I think people that have been through the process would tell you that you will stand out if you come with that mindset, because you would be surprised. I think so many people, sometimes you wonder, why are you on this committee? Because you're just sitting there, you know? So
You'll also stand out if you do what I did, and that was to walk into a closed meeting, not knowing what a closed meeting was. It is at the bottom of the sign outside the door, and a closed meeting means that no guests are allowed to come in. So, there's nothing like walking into a closed meeting and then finding out that you're being escorted out. So,
so read the sign.
read the sign.
But it's always good to ask the chair or the vice chair in a meeting, hey, I'd like to sit in if there's not guest seats. And then, find out, right? Sometimes if they're not discussing sensitive stuff, they'll make an exception. So what we did is just quickly, I just want to show you what it looks like. What Ann was telling you, here's the committee process. So the first one is you need to review your expertise profile. Then they show you where to learn about the different committees. There's descriptions. And then you're going to apply, and then you're going to get endorsements. So from there, this is just a snapshot of part of mine. I would say that you may want to go in and look at different people's and get ideas of what they've done. A couple of key things here. One is, please have a picture, as Ann said. The other is, notice right here, Women's Council of Realtors. So memberships, you definitely want to put that under there, because I forget the statistic, but when it comes to Women's Council, I want to say like 37% of the chairmanships or the vice chairmanships are Women's Council members. And so again, as people are looking, I know that oftentimes what people will say is, we know Women's Council people know Robert's rules. We know they know how to run a meeting. We know this and that, or maybe someone's met you. So I just, again, don't miss putting in whatever other memberships under there. And then, like Ann said, updating the other information. I want you to see this because Ann touched on the endorsements, and I happen to have someone ask me so I could take a screenshot. I want you to see what the person that you asked to endorse you, what they get on their side. So it's going to be, first of all, they're going to pick what their title is. And then this is what we have to fill out, right? So do you highly endorse, likely endorse? Like you can see. So it doesn't really do you a lot of good if you ask somebody that doesn't know you just because they have a big, say the president of your state, but you've never really talked to them. They're probably not going to be able to fill out something that's going to be really helpful in you. You'd be better off getting someone, say, like Ann, who might know you from Women's Council, and be like, oh, I could do that. And someone would the leadership team would know Ann, it would make more sense. And she could actually down here write those 250 words of why they think you'd be a good candidate. So I think that's something that, again, a lot of people, miss the boat on. What's the purpose?
Yeah,
Um,
because I'm putting my name on the line too. And I will be honest with you, there are times that I kind of shake my head when I get it, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think that they're suited to this. And I'm not going to put that I highly endorse. I would probably mark probably better suited for another committee.
So I have a personal feeling, Ann and I have difference, and some of this in the etiquette we'll cover too, but I have a feeling personally that if what I do is I will ask, say I wanted an endorsement from Ann, I would reach out and ask or email, would you be comfortable? And, hopefully, if you're applying, you have some emotional intelligence that tells you that if somebody isn't like, heck yes, I want to help you, then they're probably not highly endorsed like that. So, listen. And the reason I ask people, are they comfortable? Or if somebody says, oh, I might not have time, and really, it may or may not, listen and realize that if they're not super enthusiastic, they might not be the right person to endorse you for what you're doing. And I'd also just be aware, I'll give one quick example. I had 3 ideas of what I wanted to apply for after I was the NAR insurance chair. And I asked a past NAR president from my state what she thought. And she said to me, have you ever thought about this regulatory forum? It matches your background. I was like, no, I don't even know about it. And I said, let me go research. And she said, I think you'd be really good. So she was really comfortable endorsing me for that. And so I realized that sometimes people like Anne or myself or people who have been places might know of opportunities you don't even know. And so in that conversation, it's like, well, maybe it's too soon. I think you'd do better over here. Like those are all really good conversations to have building up your support and fan group, right? So just that's an important piece. And I just, again, Ann and I, we've had conversations. Everybody feels differently, but how I feel is if you send me, and the problem is the system automates. So you're over there filling out your app and you fill out the endorsement. What happens on the other side is my email goes, Lisa Stewart asked you to endorse her for such and such. And I'm like, well, Lisa hasn't even talked to me about it. Like, it feels really icky. It was sort of like, do you want to come into my bedroom? I'm like, we didn't even date. Like, let's have a conversation. So the process can really, I think, and again, the reason I'm so passionate is Women's Council has been such a great place to learn etiquette and be aware in that process. And for me, I just think that when you push that button or before you push it, you need to understand what's happening on the other side. And I find whether it's an email, a text, or a conversation, then I feel part of the process, not part of the process that's dumped on or used. And again, we want to build raving fans that are helping us on this whole journey. That's part of the development piece, right? It's not one position, it's the journey. So I just share with you that different people are different. And again, a lot is coming. Understand, like we just said, who's going to do those endorsements. So time matters, and we've got a lot of people, but be respectful. I just think that you'll find that you'll get a better response. But that's my raw feeling about all of that. So,
It's true.
but I
It's
love
true.
supporting people and endorsing. I don't take it lightly either. So that's why I'm like, let me be part of the process, and understand it's a one more opportunity for you to your support group.
Absolutely.
All right. So talk about what happens to get to vice chair and chair. Some of these people have already been on committees.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention, the other day I received an endorsement request, and they had picked to be vice chair of a certain committee, and it was their request number 3. So really stop and think about that before you do it, because if I am on the LT and I'm looking at that, and you're requesting to be a vice chair, and it is your third preference, that makes me say, well, I guess I don't want this very much. It should be your number 1. And I would not even put in to be a vice chair until you have sat on the committee at least 1 or 2 years. The chances of you becoming a vice chair without having sat on the committee are very, 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 very slim. I will say that it could happen, especially where there's crossover. There's a lot of public policy committees that are under public policy, and perhaps you've already chaired one of those. It would be fine to go ahead and request to be a vice chair of public policy. Same with RPAC and advocacy. There's a lot of advocacy committees. But if you have not sat on any of those, then you may not want to put in as a vice chair of the major investors. So fully engage in your committee. There's a lot of responsibility once you're on a committee. It just does not mean that you are going to go in and sit down and write down your name that you did attend. You want to ask questions, and you want to ask good questions. You want to see the agenda prior to. If you have questions about the agenda, feel free. I welcome it when someone texts me or emails me and says, I have a question about number 4 on your agenda. Can you tell me what this will, where you see this going, the pros and cons of it? A lot of committees only have 1 hour. A lot of work is done in times. On my particular committee, we've already had several calls from January and leading up to the May meeting. We will have another one. That's just the way that goes. And it's the way that it should go. So participate, but don't participate just to be saying something, but that goes for everything that we're involved in, right? Earn a reputation as being someone that is involved, ask good questions, doesn't just piggyback on someone else. Yes, I agree with Cyndee, and I think we should, and wasting time. An hour goes by very, very fast in a committee meeting, and it's precious to that chair. So if you do have questions, feel free to either ask the chair or the vice chair of that committee before you go into your May or your November meeting. Can you give me a little bit of help as to what we're going to be talking about here? Building rapport. Don't be late for your committee meeting. There's nothing worse than that. Somebody coming in and throwing their arms all around and making a scene. It makes you really look pretty bad. Be there 15, 20 minutes prior to, offer to help pass things out, chat with people that have time to chat with you. If the staff liaison is speaking with the chair, don't go up and interrupt them. There's probably some last minute, maybe some directives that came from executive committee or strategic thinking that they need to discuss right before the committee meeting. The time to chat sometimes is after the meeting, where you can, everyone can release a little bit and be a little friendlier. So just get to know other people on the committee during that time right before your committee meeting starts, and volunteer for task forces. If they say they want a work group, or they want to put a PAG together, or a task force together on that particular committee, raise your hand if it's of interest to you. If it is not of interest to you, don't raise your hand. There's probably, because you're just being on a task force to be on a task force, you're not going to enjoy it, and your input probably is not going to be what you would want it to be. So wait until there's usually several in the course of a year with every committee. So wait until there's something that interests you, or let the chair know, if you need anything done in the course of a year, I'm available. I really would like to become involved in this committee. I really have interest in it. And I'm hoping that I'm looking forward to your leadership. Statements like that go a very, very long way with the people in the room. Your staff liaisons are often in the LT meetings when committee selection is made. And remember that if you, perhaps, I'm not saying you were, but maybe of someone that was a problem child in a particular committee, and their name is brought up during that selection committee, that staff person is probably going to say something. So just know that
And
it kind of follows you.
yeah, and I love what you said. I had the opportunity when we were doing insurance to have a couple of task forces, and there were some people that got opportunities and they raised their hands. And sometimes you're not even on the committee, but someone knows, right? And they're like, hey, you could do this. Like maybe I knew them from Florida and they've done insurance or something. And so you can give, so again, that's that women's council looking for opportunities, helping people plug in. But what I will tell you is I also experienced people who we would meet once a month for 1 hour. And they would literally inevitably never be in their office, always be in their phone, never be on camera, and never added to the conversation. And I have experienced where the leadership team at NAR, asked my opinion as the chair of a committee. Who do you see on this committee that you would think would make a good vice chair or chair, knowing that the work's important? Who's showing up to do the work? And it's very interesting because, again, as you said, it's always comes to who would I put my name on? And if I don't feel like it, I mean, there's sometimes when the person might not be the person sitting in that room, but you knew there's other people are talented. So just realize that those opportunities, again, they're not about punching a card. They're about getting it, I would say, getting experience and building your network of learning and people that will think of you in the future. And then one other quickie example was I got asked to be on that PAG once after you were my mentor on a group where I got to meet one of the vice presidents of NAR, and they knew that a work group was being set up on sustainability and that my background and things I had done, they thought I would be a fresh voice, just like we're talking about with LID here. And I was asked to be on it out of 13, there were 13 people for all of NAR, but it 100% came from the relationship and the conversation and someone knowing I would do the work, I cared about the work, and they could feel comfortable putting that forward. So there are a lot of opportunities. We're talking about the traditional, application process, but there are oftentimes, just like we said with LID, things will come up, and yet it's important work and people want to know the people that are going to show up and do the work. So, definitely that's important.
A big black eye is always to be on a Zoom call while you're in your car. It makes the chair extremely nervous because we don't want to see you have an accident. And yes, appointments are important, but most of the time, these dates and these times are given out a month in advance. That's where you should be, in your office or at your home, focused on that call.
And
That's,
Women's Council typically does a good job of that, right?
yeah,
I
they
mean, I
do.
know at our state they do a lot of meetings and people are really good about that. So let's take them through. We put together kind of like, and we might have hit on some of them so that some might be quick, but we kind of wanted to give you guys like 12 things that we were like, all right, these are 12 things that you could derail yourself and maybe you don't even realize it. So kick it off, Anne.
Yeah, go beyond the attendance at the meeting, be a good volunteer, just be fresh and ready to work and be friendly and be just be yourself.
Absolutely. Doing the homework, one of the things that I love, and again, this goes back to pick something you're interested in. But like for me, going on insurance, they had been working, for instance, on the National Flood Insurance for 10 years. So there's 10 years of minutes of studies, of reports. And so really, again, that part of Anne's comment about why you have to be on a few years is there a lot of these things are complicated and there's a lot of background, but you can do a lot with kind of starting to learn that yourself and starting to understand and ask questions. So just realize there's a lot of information out there, and everybody's looking for people that are really curious to want to learn, just to know more about it. So definitely don't do that. Do that. It's a good thing.
Highlight your experience and your skills. We've talked about that outside of real estate. And start with an attainable committee. Like I said, go on to your state or go on to the committee. If they are only allowed to have 3 people from the state, say of Florida, and you go on there and you look at that and their term does not expire for 2 more years, don't apply to that committee because you cannot be put on it. And you're really wasting, one of your choices there. So you do have to do a little bit of homework to make sure that you're at least have a chance of getting on a committee.
That's really good. A friend of mine just told me they had that same experience with like global ambassadors, right? They have a 3-year term, and if the person's there, it's like that's not the right timing. So that's a great tip, Anne. And then I really, really would encourage you as you look at it that they do go to the trouble to talk about attainable committees. If you have a question, again, if you're doing this, if you don't have someone in your life that's a mentor, this is the perfect time to reach out and start to build one. Ask somebody questions that know some things. Most of us that have any insight, we enjoy being able to like give some thoughts about that. So but do find out and don't waste the ask, so that you really do. I mean, the person looking at your application, the first thing they're looking at is, are you credible? Like if you didn't know enough to even like you put executive as your first choice and the person knows you didn't do any homework, you didn't do any of the things that we're sitting here telling you, it's just, so again, be smart.
Absolutely. And keep it professional.
Yeah.
Apply now, get it done, get it in there, get it over with, because your endorsements do make a difference. And that's why they have them on there. And if you wait till the last minute, you probably will not get all the endorsements that you would like to have, and to keep it professional all the way through.
Yeah. And also with that, if you're asking someone for an endorsement, again, we're talking, and again, you're women's council, so you understand, but again, it's an opportunity to build a friendship and a relationship, but also be there should not be an expectation. Like it should be an opportunity to know someone, to build that. And like I said, I've just found in my personal life, as in my business, when I ask my clients for testimonials, I ask them, would you be comfortable? I'm not going to burn a relationship over no, but someone's not comfortable. And they might not be comfortable for a variety of reasons. So they might already be endorsing three people for it and they don't feel comfortable. But it's not again. So again, there's a lot to that, but I think it's a great opportunity to build for the future. And it's the long game of relationships and learning.
Mm. And in part two, share your RPAC investor status. Make sure that that is somewhere on your application. It is important for them to understand that you are participating in RPAC and that you are an investor. If you are a major investor or a Hall of Fame, put that on there also. And branch out, network and try to meet as many people as you possibly can. There's a lot of crossover between Women's Council and NAR, and that's why so many of us, after we have accomplished great things at Women's Council, we move over to NAR. It's like at your local network, you get done there, and then you start sometimes building up into your local association. So branch out. Go to a few NAR meetings, see what's going on over there. There's shuttles that take you back and forth. It's real easy to do. And sit next to someone that you don't know on the bus, on the shuttle, in the room. There's plenty of time to network with people from your own association or your own network, but branch out a little bit. Referrals are really important to our business.
I love that. And the other thing is, as you're doing your homework and you're looking at these lists of committees, you might notice women's council members from other places, right? It might be Phoenix has so-and-so, my Carol Altman might be on something. And so build a list of people that you might be able to reach out to, again, just to say, hey, I saw you're on this committee. What do you think? What do you like? Um, and then also, like I said, there's a lot of natural, and I don't know if people know, but there's also some seats on NAR committees that are designated for a women's council appointment. So again, there's maybe 9 or something. But again, if you are, stellar in a certain aspect, and when you see what those are, that might be something down the road where you're like, hey, I think I could contribute on public policy or whatever. So, but again, as you start looking at those committees, I think that you've got an opportunity to be strategic when you go to the meetings and meet people and be like, hey, I saw you were on insurance and I'm super curious. We have a lot of issues. I'd love to, connect. I mean, anybody knows if they get me in a corner talking about insurance, we're going to talk all night. I'm going to like be my new BFF. But my point is, so people feel that way too. So it is about building genuine relationships, one person at a time.
Right. And I think we'll move on from that because I think
Yeah.
we've talked about it a lot. But if you are an NAR director, say that you're an NAR director. If you hold another position somewhere, say that you are doing that because there is a lot of crossover.
Right. Hold on here. Go ahead, Ann.
Confidently step into your leadership journey, apply now. Can't say that enough. Just sit down and do that. Keep connecting, building relationships within Women's Council and within NAR. You will be very, very surprised when you start going through those committee lists, as Cyndee said, how many people that are Women's Council that also sit on a committee at NAR, and ask them for an endorsement if that is comfortable for you to do. And know that we need you because we really do. You may have heard that it's impossible to get on an NAR committee. It is not impossible to get on an NAR committee. You may have heard that it's impossible to be chosen to be one of the LID candidates from your state. It is not impossible to do that. Everything is possible. You just have to step out and step into the role.
All right, you love this. So you go ahead and share. As we were talking about this, we've had this conversation, but you and I both.
And I'm going to read it because I really do love this. HP discovered that women applied for promotions only when they believed they met 100% of the qualifications, whereas men applied when they met about 60%. So I think that tells us a lot, as far as how we feel about our own confidence level. And Cyndee and I are here to tell you today to boost that confidence level and to say, I can do this and I will do this. And I have the help of a lot of different people to make sure that I accomplish all those goals that I have for myself. I see we
Absolutely.
have some questions here too.
Yep, I think we got time. I'm gonna go ahead and quit share. I'm gonna put our information there for a second. If you wanna, if anybody has questions or wants to reach out to Ann and I wanted to put that there. So go ahead, ask your question, then I'll pull it down so we can
Yeah,
see.
Lydia, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, I put that up whenever you're talking about um, the qualifications for people that you're asking for endorsements. And I always, like Cyndee recommended, text someone, hey, would you be willing to endorse my application? But in trying to be strategic in who I was asking, I like to try to find somebody in my area, a staff member from an association, and then someone outside of my area to show that I'm well liked at home, and also I know people nationally. But what I did this year was, since I'm already on an NAR committee, I went onto the hub to see who's currently serving on the committees I was interested in, so I could look at them for an endorsement. And I was also able to see their expertise profile and their NAR committee experience. Because if they don't have experience with a committee that I'm applying for, they might not be the best one to endorse my application.
Right.
And I was surprised with some of them that they've been involved in their associations and with NAR longer than I have, but I've actually been on more NAR committees than they have. So that
Well,
doesn't mean that they're
you took it upon
unqualified.
yourself to say, I want to be on these NER committees, and you started probably applying long before they did. As far as your comment about local versus outside your area, I think staff is okay. I think they probably prefer to see member to member because it could be somebody that they know, where a local staff person they may not know, sitting in that room. So that's kind of up to you. Also, it's real easy when you go on to the NAR.realtor site to pull up the committees, the entire committee. It's done by committee, and then it's also done by state, and it will show you every member and when their term expires. So it's nice to see that also. It's really up to you who you want to use as your endorsements, but certainly for one of your endorsements, if you want to use a staff member, I think it's fine. But try to reach out as much as you can too, because they're also seeing that you have made relationships outside your local area.
Yeah.
Hey, before
Well,
we take the
that's
next question, Lydia, you brought up a good point. I wanted to just say, and clarify if like you're on insurance and it's a 2-year appointment and it's time to fill out applications, you should fill that out as your first choice, that you're not quitting the job you have, right? Like, so you don't want to go put first choices different than the committee you have or give advice.
Actually, you don't even have to fill out an application because
Okay.
it will automatically carry over for the next year. So if I have a commitment for insurance for 2 years and I am through 2026, my appointment ends at the end of 2025, then I do not have, if it ends at the end of this year, yes, I have to reapply. If it ends 2026, no, you do not even have to apply for an NAR committee. If you do apply, they're going to automatically, take it over, take you into next year. I made the mistake once, and I'll just tell you this, of resigning from a committee, but it was because I was an NAR liaison and I couldn't go to all these committee meetings that I had. So I just sent a note to staff saying, I'm just going to resign from this so you can give it to someone else because I have 30 committees under me next year. And I don't know that I should have done that because now in my expertise file, it shows that I resigned. Okay. Not really a great look. But I did it because I was giving it to someone else. So that's
Yeah,
just,
no, that's a great point.
If
ahead.
you resign, it's going to be on your expertise profile that you resign.
Don't do it.
Don't
Okay.
do it.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I do want to say that I was at when I was on your last LID meeting like this. I learned a lot about, applying for NAR, and I was very strategic this year when I decided to apply. I always, when I apply for committees, I always do it from the heart. Um, but I also took the time to find out who the chairs and vice chairs currently are in those committees. And thankfully, I know them all. So like you said, I reached out to them personally and said, listen, I'm applying for this position for next year. And I would really like for you to be my endorsement. Then they would gladly accepted it. And I will say they did. The turnaround time was great. And I just feel like, that's something important to understand who you're asking your endorsement from and know that those people are people that understand the appointment, and but it's also the commitment that's involved in these positions. And if they endorse you, then I feel like, they know you as well. Then I feel more confident by going with someone that I know as opposed to just picking, just because that person's a chair, they might not know who I am from the next person. So I think it's important to look at that list and find somebody who's been there, whether they've been there as a chair or vice chair, or they just been on a committee for several years. I think those are the people that we need to focus on when we're asking for endorsement. So I appreciate the heads up on the last one.
Good.
Really helped a lot.
Absolutely. And I'll make another comment. When you were talking about, getting the endorsements, you as a member can go in and see if they have made the endorsement. It will show who has responded to it. So maybe a few days or, after you send it out, you can either send them another reminder of, oh, I haven't seen it yet, or you can move on and ask someone else to endorse you to fill up those 3 spots.
But I do want to share, and you made a really good point, because I actually think you can request more than 3 endorsements, but you can only count 3. So one of the things you want to be very careful is, let's say that you asked Ann DeFries to endorse you, but you also asked 3 other people, and she goes to endorse you, and there are no endorsements left. And then it's like, oh, well, what am I, chopped liver? So you don't want to do too fast. Put your best endorsers and give them a little space. That's why she's saying get it done in the next few days. And then if you need other people, you have your sure things. But the other thing is, sometimes people will say to you, like, let's say you're applying for 5 committees. Someone may say to you, I'll endorse you for this one, but get somebody else for this or this. So, but again, I know for a fact that because we in Florida have a past NAR state president, that it would be very bad taste to have asked for her to endorse and take time. She's a women's council member, and her to go to do it, and there's no spot.
Let
So
me
that's
ask you
a
Had that
faux
happen.
pas. Yeah, that's a
So-
faux pas you don't want to have happen.
So look,
It's like,
has this ever happened where, let's say I asked, let's just use you guys for example. So I asked Cyndee for an endorsement, and then I asked Ann for an endorsement for the same position. And Cyndee says, oh, I highly endorse her. And Ann says, I don't recommend her for this position. I mean, what do you do with that? Because you don't know at that point.
I can tell you, Lisa, just from my leadership journey, if I did not endorse you for that position, when you ask me to endorse you, I'm going to say, I'm not sure that I'm the person that you need to ask to endorse you for that. Or what else did you apply for, Lisa? Maybe I feel more confident giving you an endorsement on that. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not going to leave you in the lurch and let you think
Okay.
that I'm going to highly endorse you when I'm not. But I'm
Okay.
honest, and most people don't like to be put into a corner like that. But I think you will sense it when you go back in and you realize that they have not endorsed
But
you.
I would appreciate somebody saying, saying that to me, like,
Right.
Lisa, you're just, based on what I know about you, I just don't think that that committee's the right fit for you. I
Right.
would rather somebody do that than for them to give me a negative endorsement.
Yeah, but
Totally agree.
that's where I go back to. I can't tell you how many of them I pray I don't miss them in my email. I get 500 emails a day, and I find something in there and nobody texted me, called me. So that conversation really, like you said, was on them. So did they, and that's what we talked about, the emotional intelligence. Did you give me the chance to sort of say something? So that's what we're saying. Let people sort of guide you. And if it isn't a heck yes, you might want to consider and go, well, and then say, or do you think I'd be better for something else? Whatever they say, it doesn't matter, because you just know they're not the one for that. Even if you really, really want that, then they're not your person for that at this time. And just like, thank you, get that. Let me go think about it. Like,
Lydia?
Yes, I have a question this time. For women's council committees, is that always open, or is there a deadline for an annual appointment? Because I saw that some of them are the micro meetings, or where might just be a task force instead of a full year committee appointment.
well, so LID is right now, like the big, everything you see in there, it's asking you to choose if there's things you see, and they're closing June 13th. They do say in the newsletter, all of a sudden they could decide they're going to have a task force about, video, and they ask for volunteers. Yes, but there's a lot more opportunities to fill it out. And more importantly, just like with NAR, you're getting on the radar as someone looking to do more. So as your state or your national, local, that's now is the time for the next 12 months to get on the radar. Is there a chance to jump into something? Maybe, but this is the time to like let people know you're interested, would be what I would say.
Well, our time is up. I'd like to thank Olivia Peterson, our staff liaison. Olivia's fabulous. I know that all of you already know her. Thank you, Olivia. And there she is, beautiful Olivia, who we will see in a couple, I guess it's like a month now, right?
1 month.
Yeah, to Cyndee, and for giving us the opportunity to do this. We'll be able to get it out to others that weren't able to get on today. But thank you very much for attending, and I will see you, and Cyndee will see you, and Olivia will see you in May.
Thank you. We wish you
Thank
all
you,
the best.
everybody.
Much
See you, man.
success.
Bye.
Bye.